Hey everybody, what's happening? This is Steve Gum, and this is the Make Your Mark podcast. Man, do I sound like amped up on those intros? I've listened to them before, and it's hard to, first of all, for those of you out there that have recorded yourself, it's hard to just even listen to your own voice. But I've kind of been going back to see where I screw up and what I repeat and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, today, gosh, I just ran that off, and I'm like, geez, I'm talking fast. But I digress. So, guys, thanks for tuning in, the Make Your Mark podcast, where we create breakthroughs in business and life. Can't thank you guys enough for tuning in. Don't know what else to say besides thank you. I love connecting with you guys, the emails that I receive. I appreciate it, and it's so much fun. I feel like I'm making a little bit of a difference, and so, any feedback you have, again, go ahead and hit me up, steve@makeyourmark.com. Love to connect with you guys. But today, this is so far, this is just one of my favorite interviews. I love Sam Glenn. I've known Sam for a long time. He's, I don't even know what to say. He's the attitude guy. He just has this authenticity about him that you can't talk to this guy and not have a smile on your face. So, but he went through some really challenging times, and he dives into that with us here on this talk. And what's amazing? This is a guy that started his career by knocking over Zig Ziglar at a buffet. It's just so funny. Everything from start to finish with Sam is really, his outlook is remarkable. He has faced some significant challenges in his life, and his attitude is what really helped him rise above. So he gives you some insights into how to do that and what he's been doing to help others reach their goals and become their best by simply changing their attitude and some of the things they're doing in their lives. So check it out. Let's talk to Sam. All right, everybody. I'm really excited to bring this guy to you today. This is Sam Glenn. Sam's an author, speaker, motivator, entrepreneur. I can go on and really butcher things here for you, Sam. But this guy's written a lot of books, and I actually was introduced to Sam years ago. I picked up the book, The Kick in the Attitude that you wrote. And since then, you've gone on. I know you've got some stuff out now, The Gift of Attitude, Peanut Butter Makes Life Better, which awesome title, by the way. And then Keep Duct Tape Away from Hyperactive Kids. So he's been doing a lot of things in the area of attitude. But the thing I love about Sam is his background and where he's come from, because he practices what he preaches. And, the things that he teaches and speaks about across the country are things that got him to where he is today. So, Sam, thanks for coming on today. How's it going, man?
It's good to be here, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Hey, so I guess, without me trying to write your life story for you, why don't you go ahead and just give people kind of a rundown. Who are you?
Oh, okay. Who am I?
Where'd you come from? So,
well, I've been a professional speaker and author for the past, I would say, 16 years. And I do about 100, speak at about 100 events a year, conferences and, corporate events and companies. And I speak on attitude. I didn't pick the topic of attitude. It picked me. And that's because, my background, I used to be very negative, just one of those real uptight kind of people. And, it wasn't until a chance encounter when I knocked over the legendary Zig Ziglar. A lot of people kind of laugh at this story, but it was my date with destiny. I knocked him over at a buffet. And, I didn't see him. He was buffet browsing. I'm 6'6", 285 pounds. You get in my way at a buffet, there's going to be problems.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I just kind of knocked him over. The security cameras might, show something else, that maybe I was buffet bullying him, but we talked and started developing a great relationship. And, the thing is like Mr. Ziglar never helped me set off on a path of becoming, a motivational speaker, inspirational speaker. My relationship with him was about, working on my attitude, because I was already an expert on being negative. And I knew how negative worked. It didn't get me hired. It didn't get me promoted. It wasn't attractive to women. It's not good for your health. So that's the, one big lesson I learned from negativity. It just doesn't get you where you want to go. So Mr. Ziglar would kind of work with me a little bit on, developing a better attitude. And in doing that, I began to, learn some different philosophies and create my own philosophies that, I wrote the book, A Kick in the Attitude. And really that book was not written for other people. I initially wrote it to myself as a reminder because I'm so forgetful. Where did I come from? How did I get here? What were the steps? And that was, in essence, the book. So, but since then, I've written several other books, and that's basically what I do in a nutshell. I travel around the country. I speak on attitude, just basically recharging people's attitudes, and I spend quite a lot of time writing. That's really my big passion is writing.
That's interesting. So take me back real quick, and because you mentioned obviously Zig Ziglar's a legend. Were you at an event of his? I mean, how did you were you pursuing self improvement at the time? How did you end up at a buffet with Zig Ziglar?
I don't recall all the details of the exact place or what it was, but I think I was at some kind of some breakfast function. And, I was with a friend, and, if you know my background a little bit, I just never bought into the attitude stuff or the personal development stuff. I just wasn't a fan of it. I didn't buy into it. I didn't understand it. So, but, I love buffets. I bumped into him. But, the thing about it is when I helped him up and we started talking, he was kind of like, hey, how would you like to come have your meal with my wife and myself? And I was like, okay. So my friend was like, where are you going? I'm like, I got to go eat with this guy who's going to press charges. So, but, when we did talk, when we did have our conversations, they were very early in the morning, usually around 5 a.m. And, they last about 15, 20 minutes. And we would just focus on, my attitude.
That's interesting. So Sam, did you ask him to mentor you? I mean, how did you take that relationship to the next level?
Oh, I think he was just afraid that I'd beat him up or knock him over again. So, no, actually, I didn't know who he was. I had no idea that, and sometimes we have no idea when we're sitting in the presence of greatness. And that's the thing that one great thing I learned from Mr. Ziglar, and I think it's really helped my career, is that he was a humble person. He was among the people. He never elevated himself above people. I mean, he just, he was just a guy that just was very down to earth. And like I said, I had no idea who he was until somebody, explained, hey, do you know who you were talking to? Do you know who you were eating with? And so I actually called his office, and, and I wanted to learn more. And so I talked to his secretary, and she's like, well, does Mr. Ziglar know you? Is he expecting your call? And I'm like, just mention the guy from the buffet. And she did. And next thing you know, I'm talking to Zig, and he was really kind to mentor me. And he actually saw me speak for the first time. He was in the audience, and he actually got to see me do, my speech and what I do. In 2002 at the National Speakers Association. So that was cool. We hung out for a little bit afterwards, had a cup of coffee, and kind of just chatted and, relived the buffet experience.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about failure, because I think the interesting thing about you, Sam, is how, you admittedly had a very bad attitude. And so there's going to be people that are listening to this, particularly in the entrepreneur community, who have gone through some things where life is not, continually knocking them on the chin. And so it's very easy to, really get in a funk, especially when things aren't going well. And so I just, give me a little read on how you really kind of picked yourself up after your, I guess I'll call it a downfall. When your business went, had issues. I think you had a fire. How does someone kind of pick themselves up from that and get clarity, and how does attitude play into that?
Well, the thing about attitude, Steve, is, I came up with this years ago. Your attitude's either in the way or it's making a way, and you determine which every day. And you have to realize that every morning, and really think of it this way: your attitude is what's driving the bus. And then you have to ask yourself, who's driving the bus? And what I mean by that is our attitude is what drives our talents, our abilities, our education, and our experience. And people who have a very high appraisal of attitude understand the power of attitude and what it can do and how it can, help us win or get ahead and keep moving forward or hold us back. But it was very interesting. My grandfather had a business for close to 30 years. And this is a very interesting business. It was wild bird products. And a lot of people don't know that, one of the biggest hobbies in our country, USA, is gardening. And the number 2 hobby is birding.
Wow.
And that's, the demographics would be kind of like my parents. If you go to their house, they have a really nice garden, but they have all those bird houses outside and stuff. So that's what birding is. So it's, but he had a couple of products, and that was his business for 30 years. And before he passed on, he left it to our family, and I took it over, and I learned the ropes of what it means to be an entrepreneur as I ran the company into the ground. So, I just guessed. I didn't know what I was doing, and but the company that put our product together that we subcontracted out, there was a fire, everything was lost, the business was lost, and there I was. There was nothing I could do to recoup, and it was very humbling, especially knowing what it meant to my family and my grandfather. So, for a while there, I just got caught up in a pity party. I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to, sleep, eat, watch TV, and just blame the world. Just, when you get to a place where you've really failed big, there's a part of you that you're afraid to try again. You're afraid because in your mind you're thinking, why try again? Because I might just fail. But you know what? That's the thing is, you got to find a way to try again, and maybe try small. And learn from it. And I often tell people, don't waste your trials. Use them as stepping stones, not as weights. And so that's what I did. I began to focus on doing an inventory of what would I like to do from this point on, and how do I get my attitude to a place that it's working for me. And so that was the first step. And so slowly from there, I began to work on my attitude. That is what builds resilience. Entrepreneurs know that when they've bombed and they've come back, and if things don't work out again, like when the economy tanked a short time ago, a lot of people, went through some hard times. But that person who has that sense of resilience, who's been through a hard time, they have that mental note in their mind and in their spirit that, I've been through hard times before, and I might be going through a hard time now, but I've got what it takes to keep going forward.
Yeah. Was there anything that you did to, because from a habitual standpoint, a lot of people are stuck, right? I mean, habits can be fantastic or they can be terrible. So, when you were going through it, were there things that you did very consciously to fight the negative attitude and move in a positive direction?
Yeah, there's a couple things I did. Number one, I'm a big, it sounds real simplistic, especially, we live in a society that really worships complexity. And sometimes we have to just simplify things. And the more simple we make it, the better it becomes for us. So I started actually reading positive quotes every day. I wasn't a big reader, especially Mr. Ziglar. I would ask him, how do you get a positive attitude? And he would say, well, Sam, I read 3 to 4 hours a day. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of reading. And especially from somebody that's, like myself, where I'm ADD, I have attention deficit disorder, and, you open a book, you look at the words, you're like, oh, this just looks like work. I'll wait for the movie. So, he challenged me to read positive quotes. So I would read positive quotes every day. And that was just like taking a vitamin for my attitude to keep me on the right track. But then This is huge. I think you have to have a good network or a good few people that I call a circle of encouragers. They're somewhat like your accountability partners. They know what you're going through. They know what you're about, and they're the ones that kind of will give you some tough love, give you the encouragement you need to keep going, and just check in with you from time to time, make sure you're doing okay, but also challenge you. Are you doing what you said you were going to do? You said you were going to start getting better or doing this, or you were going to take this class, or you were going to do that. Are you doing it? And if you're not, why aren't you? So I started doing that. In fact, back then, I'll put it to you this way. When you're down and depressed, for some people, maybe they might revert to very bad habits. For me, mine was, and I'm not afraid to tell anybody, I found comfort in food. That was my drug.
Sure.
I would eat and eat and eat until I just couldn't eat anymore, and I would go sleep. And then I would wake up and I would eat more. So I packed on the weight. And my brother said, man, you got to start living in a way that you're going to live a good life for your family, live a good life for yourself. So he said, let's go to the gym. And I'm like, that's not motivating, because the hardest part about getting to the gym is what? Getting to the gym. And once you're there, you're fine. And then you leave the gym, you're like, I feel great. But then the next day comes around and you're like, oh, I just don't feel like going. So that's why you got to have that somebody that pushes you. So my brother, he said, he goes, I read an interesting article. You can burn 500 calories walking 9 holes of golf. And I'm not a golfer, but last year we started doing it, and we started walking 9 holes of golf, and it was really interesting. The weight started coming off. I started feeling good, and I started learning, the game of golf. But I also learned that, when you play golf, you can, also discover some other things about yourself, like rage issues. So... So now I'm in anger management class. But it's those little things, and having people to hold you to a level of improvement or to, a level of perseverance. And I think those things are what can help you keep moving forward, especially when you feel stuck or in a funk. Because sometimes you don't want to make decisions with a foggy brain. A negative attitude. But if you can get somebody who has a little clarity, who's got your best interest at hand, and can encourage you, that could put that little light, that little positive spark in you that can get you going, moving forward.
Yeah, that's it. So did your brother approach you like, Sam, you need some help, or did you, I guess what I'm getting at is for people that maybe don't have anybody that's coming to them, saying, look, I'm gonna lift you up. Do you find, or have you found, a simple kind of first step to building that support system?
I think it's about, if you have a couple people that you're pretty close to, it's pretty easy to bring the topic up.
Yeah.
And in the case with my brother, how that rolled out, we were walking through Target, and his littlest girl, who was like, I don't know, 7 or 8 at the time, she said, Uncle Sam, are you pregnant? And that right there became some motivation. And, Ben pulled his daughter aside and he said, Uncle Sam is not pregnant. That's just a lot of chocolate. And, and so we had a talk, and Ben said, hey, what can we do to change this? What can I hold you to? How can I help you? And so he laid that out there. But, there are times where, if I feel weak about something and I know that I have some people that really care about me, I might call them and say, I'm going through a tough time right now. I just want to share this. Do you got any thoughts or ideas? And just maybe having them listen is great encouragement, and then letting them just share their thoughts to encourage you.
Yeah. So God, that's funny. You're killing me. as you travel, you get out a lot. I mean, you're doing 100 plus gigs a year. I mean, it's crazy. But what do you find? Like, because there's a lot of people out there, and it's starting to kind of get a little more publicity. With Terry Bradshaw and some of these guys coming out, folks that are hardwired for, depression, anxiety, things like that, where, even the best intentions are so hard, right? I mean, that you need to have some clarity and a better attitude on life. I mean, is it kind of the same thing for those people? I guess to ask a different question, like, do you run into people that are hardwired to be negative and anxious, and how do they kind of push through that?
I have no idea what you're talking. No, I'm kidding. I think there are certain people that are hardwired that way. That maybe they have that anxiety or depression or, type A personality. Everybody's hardwired their own way. And I think it's about recognizing what your weakness is, but also acknowledging your strengths and putting a great deal of emphasis and effort on your strengths. Like my wife, she's constantly reminding me of my strengths. She'll say, I'm a natural complainer, and it just pops up. There's just things that I complain about, but I complain about it in a very comedic way. But there are times where she'll say, aren't you excited about this new book that you have coming out? Isn't this like, she'll read it and she'll be like, this is like one of the best books I've ever read. She goes, aren't you excited about it? I'm like, And that's because, a lot of us might be hardwired to critique ourselves or not treat ourselves the way we should. And some of that might go back to, kindergarten. When kids make fun of you, it's just something that we grow up with. And so those are some things that I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Those are some things that just don't go away. They stay with us, but they don't have to be the loudest voice or play the largest role in our life. Yeah. And so I think we have to constantly remember the things that we're good at, our strengths, and we need to take time to remember those things, and we need to listen to the compliments that people pay us, and that helps kind of silence those things that get in the way, like the fears, the anxieties, or the stresses, the things that just pop up and kind of trip us up.
Yeah. So has it, and this just popped in my head, but I mean, has it been tough being the attitude guy? Like, I mean, life is real, right? So people obviously must assume, like, man, if anyone's going to be excited and happy every day, it's Sam.
I get that a lot.
Yeah.
I get that a lot. And it's interesting is I need reminders, and my focus is using a lot of humor in my presentations, and I'll have people come up afterwards and they'll be like, oh my gosh, it just must be so much laughter at your house. And, there is that. And that's one of the great things about my relationship with my wife is that the laughter that we share just is a spice to our relationship. It's got bonding power, but sometimes I need a reminder. Like the other day, she said, "Are you excited about this trip that we're going on?" And I think we're going to Disney World or something. And I just kind of responded like, "Yeah." And she's just like, "Will you be bringing that stick along?" And I'm like, "What stick? The one behind you?" And now, if you're listening to that, if you don't know what that means, go ask somebody. But it's one of those things where, hey, you got to lighten up a little bit.
Yeah.
And but yeah, there is some pressure. But I think what connects me to people is that I'm very real about who I am, my struggles, and about how I've overcome them and why attitude is so important to me. And I think that's what makes it so endearing to other people. So. Yeah, they know I'm not putting on a show, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, your authenticity is really what is, I think, draws a lot of people to you. And, I guess it's fascinating to me because, you went through this trial and then, you kind of rose up figuring out that attitude was a key and you built a career out of it, So I wanted to ask you, I would be I don't know, I don't want to say doing everyone a disservice, but you have really done a remarkable job of taking your story and a great message and turning it into something that is very valuable to you and to those who consume it. And so from a standpoint of you went from having this business that went under, you picked yourself up, from a speaking standpoint, like what made you decide like I'm going to go and be a speaker?
Well, here's how that worked out. I never set off to be a speaker, and I'm usually the quietest guy in the room. I'm more introverted than I am extroverted, but I'm passionate about what I do. And like I said, I have ADD. You put a microphone in our hand, it's happy time. But I actually took F's and zeros in college anytime it was required to give a speech. And just for the fact that I just, I didn't like the way my heart was beating, my hands were sweating, I didn't want to pass out, pee my pants or something. And I actually saw somebody faint during a speech. And I thought, man, after that sealed the deal. There's no way. But I started volunteering with a youth program many years ago, and they asked me to just get up, share a couple encouraging words with the kids. And that's really how it started. I had no idea how to put a speech together. I had no idea how to communicate, connect, or use the techniques that I do today to really, captivate and really connect with an audience. But I think it goes back to that sincerity part and being real with people. And the young people would come up afterwards and they'd be like, hey, that's really cool. Would you come speak to my school? And, it just became a word of mouth kind of thing. And the next thing you know, within like maybe a year, I was speaking to audiences as large as 75,000 people at stadium events.
Wow.
And, but that's the thing is when I started my company, I had no budget, no marketing budget at all, none. And so I realized that what I had to do, and this is what I tell entrepreneurs or new speakers, if you're sitting at home, it's probably because of one of two reasons. You either have really bad marketing or really bad speech. And that's it. And I realized since I didn't have good marketing because I had no budget to market, I had to rely on giving a good speech. So I studied hundreds and hundreds of speakers. And when you're ADD, some of those speakers are not very ADD friendly. So I learned what captivates an audience, what gets them to want more, so I learned all these little things. And then I think what has really helped me develop my business is my originality. I've never tried to be like anybody else, no desire to be like anybody else. I've never copied anybody else. I use my own material. And the more original you are, that is what makes you more desirable. And there's some speakers that I've seen that, they try to be like a Tony Robbins or somebody else, and the world already has a Tony Robbins, but the world, what they really want is the best you. And that's what people need to recognize is you have to own your originality. And I think that's one of the big things that's contributed to my success.
Yeah, that's and it's been a heck of a ride for you. I mean, it's fun to watch. So, along the way, I mean, obviously you knock over Zig Ziglar at a buffet. Your brother helps you out when, basically you look pregnant. And what along the way, Sam, right? I mean, because you're human and yeah, you're speaking about motivational stuff, but you're running a business and you're a guy with a family and you deal with the same, challenges that we do. Has there been any bit of advice that really has resonated that's kind of, lifted the sail?
Any kind of advice that I've been given or
that you've been given? Was there anything where it was just like, man, that made a big difference?
There's a couple things. One, obviously I told you, own your originality, and that's not easy to do, especially with a subject that's so broad as attitude. And we actually, if you were to look at the core of my message is really about developing better emotional management skills. But do you know how boring that sounds? But that's the thing is, you try to sell a speech to some companies about attitude, and you can tell a lot of companies don't have a high appraisal of attitude. They're like attitude, schmatitude. It's so broad, you can't measure it, doesn't matter. So they don't invest in it. They don't understand it, obviously. But some of the things that I've learned that have helped me. There's a book by, I believe it's by Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield. It's called The Aladdin Factor. I would tell any entrepreneur to get this book and read it. I love this book because it taught me how to ask, and it taught me how to ask without fear. So I'm never afraid to ask, people to buy my business or to buy my books. With each rejection or no or, critique, you learn that those things don't matter. If you really believe in what you got and who you are and your product or service, and if you have that power of, that you can ask and feel good about asking, even though there's rejection and failure along the way, success will come. It'll happen. So that's been one of the best books I've ever read is learning how to ask and not being afraid to ask for the business or not being afraid to ask for the sale.
That's pretty cool. Now, the other thing about you that a lot of people may not know unless they follow you and engage with you a lot is your art. And I think it's interesting, first of all, it's great stuff, but I guess when I look at you and I've got I travel a lot for work. And so I've got a kind of an idea of what you deal with, and it seems like that's your outlet, but I love the way that you share it. I think with the way that you've, promoted your books or talked about them and your artwork and all that, it's so refreshing to me to have somebody just, share themselves in a way that is almost without fear. Even though you may have fear internally, you really try to put your authentic self out there, and it's rare, so when it comes to your art in general, or anybody that has like a passion outside of what they're known for, their work, is that your outlet? And I mean, where did that come from? And how did you start sharing that? I mean, because it's just so much fun to watch.
Yeah, it really is an outlet for me. It's fun to do. And, when you talk about putting your stuff out there, you don't know how people will respond to it. In fact, if people don't know what it is, I just tell them, I'm an abstract artist. And in fact, my brother's daughter was over the other day and she goes, Uncle Sam, you know what I like most about your art? And I'm like, what's that, sweetie? She's like, because you can never tell what it is right away and you got to guess. I was like, okay. But, there's some art that I'll give you a little story. This happened the other day. Some woman emailed me from one of my events, and she was sharing a story about how maybe a year ago her 4-year-old daughter was in an accident and passed away. And she has 2 other daughters that are older and her husband. And, they said it's been the hardest thing to deal with, and she's had to become the rock in the family. And she saw me draw one of my pictures, the pathway through the mountains, and I call that peaks and valleys. And she said, I saw that picture and it just spoke to me, and she described how it spoke to her. And so my heart kind of went out to her about that story because, I have a 9-month-old little girl and I can't even imagine what she went through.
Yeah.
So this is really cool. She doesn't even know it's coming yet. We put it in the mail today. I actually drew her up a really, really big picture. And so in a couple days, it's going to show up at her doorstep. She has no idea it's coming. And those are the moments that I love the most, that she's going to open it up. She's going to be able to frame it, put it in her house, and they're going to look at it and it means something to them. And that's the thing is my art's an outlet. Every picture means something. You might not know what it is, but everybody sees their own thing in the art, and it's just fun to do. I love giving my art away. In fact, I give most of my art away. Sometimes I'll sell it for really, really cheap, and we'll use that money and we'll give it away to some kind of a special cause. But we'll even donate art to special causes that they can raise for fundraising. We just got a note that somebody bought one of my pieces for $4,000, and they raised $4,000 for their cause.
Wow.
And that's really cool. So, it's fun to do. I've never set off to make money with the art, but it's first an outlet, and then, if people like it, great. You know, they can have it because I don't have any more room for it.
But you know what's great about it, Sam, is like there's so many people where it makes you, relatable. I think a lot of professionals and entrepreneurs hide behind this veneer, and really some of the things that would connect them to people are their hobbies or their passions or, what they do. And so I just, I guess I want to thank you. It's just refreshing to see somebody that puts themselves out there the way that you do, because it does build very unique connections. It's just so much fun to watch, and not easy to do. I think a lot of people have these passions or these things that they really, are alive for outside of their job, and no one ever knows about it. So it's fun to watch you put it out there, and it's just cool, man.
Well, it's also interesting, Steve, is that, I'm not a big fan of going to networking events, but as entrepreneurs, you go to them to try to build new business. And, when you have a lot of social anxiety like me, a little technique that I learned that a friend helped me turn me on to, he says, just pretend you're a talk show host and just walk around the room and ask people questions about their favorite subject, them. And what's really cool is in doing that, you learn about other people's hobbies or passions or things about them, and those things become a bridge that you can connect. Somebody might be like, well, I'm an Indianapolis Colts fan. I'm like, oh, well, I'm a Viking fan. Let's see how we can relate, and so, somebody might talk about their kids. And so there's a bridge for connection. And that connection can, turn into a relationship. One thing that I put in my new book that's coming out is when I go to a networking event, I might put a famous person's name on that little tag that says, hello, my name is so-and-so. And I usually put Pat Sajak. And I'm not going to lie to you, that has gotten me so much business because it just breaks the ice. I've had more people walk up to me, are you really Pat Sajak? Is that your name? And I've had people email me like I'm emailing for Pat Sajak, and they know I'm joking, but it just kind of brings a little lightheartedness. And it just kind of starts the conversation because, it's kind of hard to jump into a conversation, but when people see that, it kind of opens the door a little bit, but kind of a fun little technique.
Oh, dude, that's so fun. I'm stealing that for sure. That is hilarious. It's hilarious.
And that's the cool thing is when you leave the networking event, people remember you.
For sure.
They're going to be like, Pat Sajak was there. He doesn't look the same as he does on TV, though.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Okay, so, oh, that's so good. Okay, so closing. I've taken up so much of your time. Let's talk real quick, and I'll let you fly. When you look back, you're doing so much for so many people. I mean, you're in a profession that really it's about. I don't think people realize how difficult it is, because when they hire Sam Glenn, they expect. I mean, you may have the crappiest morning in the world, and they're expecting like the attitude guy to get on stage and really, change lives. And so, I guess in general, just what you're doing as a business with your art, with your life, when you look back years from now, Sam, how do you hope you have made your mark, man?
Well, my big thing is humor. I've always, tried to share that element of humor in my programs. I've never forced humor. I'm not a comedian. I don't know how to tell a joke, but for some reason, people laugh so hard in my programs that, I've seen people pass out. I've seen people run out because they got to pee. And I've had people come up to me and tell me they haven't laughed that hard in years. The thing about it is there's some kind of a joy there. There's a gift of humor. And I want people to feel that special gift. And so I hope people remember, that contribution that, I made them smile, made them laugh, and that made a difference in their life. That put that little positive spark in their attitude, because if there's one thing that brings an attitude to life and brings light to an attitude, it's having a good sense of humor. It's a gift that we have, and when we lighten up, we're able to see so many great, funny things around us, and we can enjoy it, and we can just give that gift to ourselves every day. It's not always easy, but it's something I hope people will remember and walk away from my things and know me for.
That's great, man. Well, Sam, I got to say, you're doing remarkable work out there. You're one of the most authentic people that I think I've spoken to in a long time. And I just want to, I'm grateful for what you're doing and the journey that you've been on, as entrepreneurs and being away from your family and sharing your message. It's something that, no one should take for granted. I mean, if you go out and you see Sam talk or he comes to you, realize, what he's leaving behind to do that and bring that to you. It's he's giving a lot of himself to really try and improve the lives of businesses, entrepreneurs, and people, across the country. And, I applaud you for that, Sam, and even for taking the time out to talk to me. Just very grateful, man.
Absolutely, Steve. This is great. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, I will look forward to seeing you out there sometime, and I think everybody's going to appreciate this talk. I will direct them to your site and other, your social media channels on the show notes on the website. But is there what's the easiest way if someone wants to get a hold of you that they could do that?
If they go to samglenn.com, that's it.
All right, beautiful. I'll make sure that everybody's got that on the show notes. And Sam, thanks a lot, man. I appreciate it. I can't thank you enough, and just have a great day and keep doing what you're doing.
All right, thanks, man.
All right, guys, that's Sam Glenn. If you're not chuckling a little bit during that bad boy, I don't know what to tell you. Sam's fantastic. Gosh, thanks a lot, Sam, for jumping off. If you're checking out this podcast, I love you out there, brother. I look forward to grabbing dinner with you sometime soon. But that's it for today, guys. Next week, I'm going to talk Facebook strategy and using your expertise to build a business with Rick Mulready. And I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with Rick. He's awesome, too. The guy's just, an open book when it comes to his knowledge. He's going to teach you guys some really cool stuff about Facebook advertising and marketing and kind of his experience of growing his own business. So it should be a pretty valuable podcast. Please go to iTunes, rate the show. Hopefully you rate it good. I don't know, but just be honest, whatever. And leave me a review. And again, you can always reach me on Twitter at Steve Gum or email me, steve@makeyourmark.com, and I'll get back to you. Give me a couple days. I get a lot of emails, but I do get back to all of them. So at any rate, go out there today, make your mark, make a difference in somebody's life, make somebody smile. Everyone's going through something, and it's an opportunity to really kind of cause a ripple effect in the world when you kind of, just cheer somebody up, make somebody's day. And that's it, guys. I will talk to you in the next episode. Thank you very much. I love you for listening. Have a great one.